One thing I most disagree with Bernie Sanders on, a man who I wholeheartedly stand behind, regardless of the matter, is his stance on gun legislation. Because the blatant truth to at least one man is that the guns aren't the root of the problem. The true problem is that there is something deeply wrong with our society. Because there are presently millions and millions of people choosing they'd rather live on the streets than work a job, that are living in the slums and joining gangs to find a sense of acceptance and safety in life, and that are suffering anxieties, addictions, and depressions. Whilst some of these people just so happen to want to hurt the world and everyone in it, simply to make a statement as to how powerful they are, living in a world that has redundantly told them that they are powerless, that they are failures, and that they are weak. Can someone with a voice people listen to please stand up and acknowledge that we have a much bigger problem here? Because I know I'm not the only one who sees it. The truth is, this gun control is just another band-aid solution that fails to address the true root of the problem. That being that we are living in a deeply pained society that is in such a state of denial about these pains and who causes them, we, the people, that we can't even see how crooked and tainted a massive majority of us in fact are. We can't even see that we are the ignorantly prejudicial and self-centered bullies that are creating these individuals who seek to hurt people in order to prove how powerful they are. The problem is, we live in a society where everyone is bullying, judging, dehumanizing, and prejudicing against others on a perpetual basis as a means of attaining social rankings within the given hierarchy, whilst fervently deflecting and denying this truth. And out of selfish seekings of self-preservation, to fit in and be cool and popular and to find acceptance in this tainted world. And because this ignorant example is truly over-prevalent, even the good guys are embodying this ignorance to varying extremes, whilst also deflecting and denying this truth. Regardless if we are only placing a blind eye and condoning it, or whether we are facilitating and contributing to it like the worst among us, both are equally as bad and equally to blame for the epidemic that is presently plaguing our society. Whilst the worst among us, the greatest hypocrites, those most afraid of their own ignorance and utter hypocrisy coming to light, so fervently claiming to be selfless and giving saints, when they themselves are in fact clandestinely the worst culprits of all of the above. The problem is, we've cultivated this tough guy society where if one isn't strong and tough, an a-hole full of crap, doesn't bury away their emotions, and doesn't enjoy contributing to ignorant banter and gossip about one's peers, they are weak and are a potential threat to someone else's ignorance coming to light, and thus are an even greater target to be bullied and discriminated against. You see, what has become blindingly apparent to me is that we as a society are doing something very wrong. Because for some odd reason, there are more and more of us who want to lash out on the world and cause mass chaos and destruction. And all I can think is, gee, I wonder why. Definitely the guns' fault. Because it couldn't possibly be because we live in a deeply corrupt, greedy, self-centered, superficial, pretentious, and narcissistic society where everyone only truly cares about their own success and good fortunes first and foremost. That leaves millions and millions of people to fend for themselves and to suffer as the inferior, failing dregs of society. And what does society do best? deflect blame away from ourselves as being the problem, most particularly when we know that we are the problem. Being the most tainted of us certainly know their tainted intentions behind their duplicitous and superficial behaviors. Because each and every one of us are too caught up in this popularity contest in which we live, and thus this game of triumph, where we all unconsciously know that our neighbors will use anything and everything they can against us to degrade our social standing if we give it to them. Which is why we childishly deflect and deny our flaws and pitfalls, the truth that we ourselves have been bullied all our lives, rather than embrace them in order to transcend them. Which is why we suffer the insecurities that cause us to act in tainted ways merely as a means to fit in with a particular crowd. Embodying the tainted social norms of our status quo simply to find a sense of acceptance in a so very dark world. Do you see what I'm getting at? As society proves my point by responding to, for example, an event of mass terror by saying, the kid is just defective. There is clearly something wrong with them. Right. Because clearly no one around them or nothing in their environment has caused them to hate the world and the people in it so much. Because clearly people are born as empty computers that don't even know how to move a finger until they are taught how in practice. But being angry and learning to hate the selfish and cruel world that has done nothing but bully and shun them as worthless and weird and losers is certainly inborn in their coding. It certainly wasn't because their parents weren't loving nor paying enough attention to them as they tell others they were and do. It certainly wasn't because in school the kid wasn't accepted and people never welcomed them into their friend circles with open arms and accepted who they were. It certainly wasn't because they've been born into this world where everyone around them, their parents, their relatives, their neighbors, are perpetually and clandestinely waging a war for triumph via seeking superiority over each other in any way one can latch onto them. This seeking of triumph that is so ingrained in our status quo that we don't even recognize that each and every one of us are participating in it on a 24/7 basis. To the full extent that even when we become conscious that we are doing it, it is still bloody hard to defeat because it is simply that normal in our society. The truth is, our society's behavior is so dark and tainted that even those that truly believe they are of the light don't have the slightest comprehension that they are in fact dark and tainted in more ways than they acknowledge, simply by the nature of being perpetually engulfed by these tainted and dark social norms. But the blatant truth remains, our society presently flourishes with ignorant, intolerant, and prejudicial bullies disguised as sweet, all-loving saints. These ignorant and prejudicial bullies hiding behind their facades to protect themselves from the cold truth of what they in fact are, whilst the worst among us, who breed into those of the light these dark and tainted behaviors, will literally do any and everything in their power to direct blame away from themselves and their own tainted actions and intentions as being the true root of the problem, easily demonizing and degrading others whilst doing calculated, kind, and selfless things as a means of protecting their throne of lies. Yet, the given individual may have fallen and done something heinous, but the fact remains, the only reason they've committed such a heinous crime is because of the disgustingly tainted social and economic systems we've created that are based entirely in selfish triumph and competition, in unsung superiority complexes, bullying, prejudice, intolerance, and judgment, rather than team unity. And the fact of the matter is, until we realize that we have a deeply seated problem within our society, until we realize that a darkness presently clandestinely controls our planet that is so normal that we don't even see it as darkness, until we accept that the society we've created is the root of all that is wrong with the world, not the manifestations we create, i.e. the guns, until we accept blame that we ourselves as individuals are in fact a part of the problem in ways we presently deflect and deny. No matter how many good things we do to publicly sugarcoat all our ignorant, prejudicial, and judgmental social norms hidden from view within our private social setting, we will continue to fall as a society